Welcome back. Everybody, this is a historic day. It is a historic moment in the history of internet audio files being uploaded to Apple and Spotify, aka podcasts. This is a day I saw it coming, but never thought we would get to, kind of. This is the 1 year anniversary of the Nobody Asked for This podcast. How fun is that? We made it a year. And by we, I mean me. I made it a year of really, if we boil down what we're celebrating here today, I made it 1 year of recording audio files and uploading them to the internet to have then zero people listen to it, except some very nice people in the UK who are for some reason listening on Samsung Podcasts, which apparently is an app. I assume for Samsung phones. I would just guess. But yeah, this is the 1 year anniversary episode, and for the past month or so, I've been looking at the calendar, thinking, oh, it's getting closer. And I was going to do a special episode. I had all these plans. I was gonna, go back and listen to some episodes. I was going to, maybe actually sit down and write some sort of structure, have a preset idea of what I was gonna say, what I was gonna talk about. And I didn't end up doing that for two reasons. The first reason being the most obvious. I don't have listeners. So it's I could put all of that energy and time into planning a 1 year celebration episode. But then it begs the question of who would that be for? It would be very much like throwing your own birthday party. Doing this podcast is me throwing my own birthday party, but it would be like bringing a cake that you stayed up till 2 in the morning the night before to make, and then lighting candles on that cake, and then singing to myself and acting surprised. It was a little bit too sad. I'm actually surprised at how not embarrassed of this I am. How okay I am with just literally uploading me talking into my phone once a week on the internet, for technically anyone to listen to, on paper. No one's listening to it, as I said, as I mentioned 3 times in the last 3.5 minutes. But I thought, you know what? Not gonna happen. Now, really, the main reason I didn't get to this is time got away from me. So as opposed to kind of recording this into a real microphone, which I was really thinking of doing, I was going to bust out the old equipment. I was going to get a mic stand. I was going to get that filter thing that goes over top of the microphone, and I was going to talk crystal clear audio. Kind of. It was a microphone, a very professional, fancy microphone from 2011. So, probably on the same kind of tier as my phone from a couple years ago. When you do the math of the conversion rate, you wouldn't have heard when I'm going to say a word, pop. See, it would have been crisper through the filter. But you're not getting that, unfortunately, today. I don't want to say never, because never say never. But you're getting a standard episode of the Nobody Asked for This podcast, because that's what I'm able to offer. It is 10:37 p.m. the night before this comes out. Now it's 10:38. The clock just switched, as it loves to do. I'm sitting in my pajamas, back in the potentially rat-accompanied, I don't want to say infested, I'm going to say accompanied, a rat-accompanied podcast studio, basement, podcast studio, fancy podcast studio, beanbag chair in a basement. You know what I mean? Very fancy podcast studio. And yeah, so cool. I can't believe it's been a year. I was looking back, taking a trip down the old memory lane. And the craziest part was I was seeing titles of episodes that, like, I don't remember. Like, I don't remember recording any of it. I refuse to listen back. Like, I don't actually, like, want to know what an episode called, just for instance. I don't need to, know the full details of what an episode called Liz, Chip, and Antarctica really consisted of. Although, really, not to toot my own horn, but that was a perfect episode title because it told you everything without telling you anything. Which, to do a little, like, tangent here, we gotta fix whoever is making movie trailers is either doing the best job in the world or the worst job in the world, because I feel like you can watch a movie trailer and know what the entire film is about. And maybe they want that to happen, but I feel like no, like, just show us, like, a clip, maybe show us, like a title sequence, put some catchy music in the background, but, like, I don't need to witness the entire plot in the trailer. It's, like, getting a bit ridiculous. Like, especially some of these Netflix movies. Like, do you know when you're on Netflix and you're deciding what to watch, and then when you stop on, like, the cover, like, the poster, whatever, of a movie, you hear, like, the video starts playing at the top, and it's the trailer? You can basically just watch that, and it's like you've watched the whole thing. Like, there are movies that I wanted to watch. I'll sit down to watch. I'll turn on the trailer, like, sometimes by accident. Like, I meant to click play, but I accidentally clicked trailer. And then I feel like I've seen the whole movie. So it's like, why would I bother to do that again? So I don't know. I just feel like the whole trailer industry really needed that. I feel like they're often not called out as much. Like, I don't think anyone's really putting their attention on the trailer community. And I get it. Like, we have way bigger fish to fry. But while those fish are, like, in the deep fryer, like, maybe let's just, like, talk about it. Just talk about it. As I said earlier, while this is a special episode, it will be the most regular episode of the podcast I can offer. Truthfully and honestly, one of the most last-minute podcasts I've ever offered. But that is only because yesterday my car decided to turn on. Now, let me explain that a little bit. Yesterday, I had, done a hard day's work. I was walking back to my vehicle. And of course, like everyone, I normally have a driver. This past couple weeks, I've been trying to, humble myself and I can drive myself. Not every day, obviously. But once in a while, like, I can turn the key, sit in the driver's seat, like, just, like, brush up on my skills, really, so I don't use them or lose them, type theory. So I decided to drive myself that day and gave my private driver the day off. I got to work totally fine. Blissfully, even. Actually, this story really starts a couple days before. I had noticed, like, do you know how on the not the dashboard, but, like, what's the dashboard that you see? Like, where you can see how fast you're speeding? Right next to that, you obviously have the gas. Everyone knows what that means. And then you have the thermostat. I understand that I'm explaining a very basic, like, I get it, like, everyone knows what I'm talking about, but I have to make the story sound more dramatic, and really drag it out to fill this, like, full episode. So bear with me. But you have the temperature, like the thermostat marker. And I don't really pay attention to that. My car in the past has had some overheating issues, but that was because I went to get an oil change. And then when you go for an oil change and then they basically tell you, like, your entire car is falling apart and they're like, you need to fix this. I basically, like, I don't want to say I fell for it. I knew that I was definitely paying a markup. Like, I knew inflation was occurring. But I figured, that my car would be disassembled, essentially, fixed, and then put back together properly. And what I came to find out the next day after said oil change plus extra features or whatever they were offering me, the markup, what is that called? The upsell. Oil change plus upsell. The next day on the freeway, I came to find out that the putting back together of the car was not something that happened smoothly. You know, something was wrong, and it started overheating. So since then, I've had an awareness of what that number meant, and if it, you know, goes from C, which means I'm assuming cold at the bottom, and spikes up all the way to hot above the red line, that means that your car is about to like explode or something. I don't really know exact details, but that's really all I need to know. I'm on a need to know basis with cars. I'm trying to get better and like, you know, learn like what a transmission is and what the radiator is, and what coolant is. I'm getting there. I might need like a car for dummies book. Like maybe I can track that on my Goodreads. If I can, if it counts toward my Goodreads goal, I'll read it, pretty much. So I'm going to see if they're on there. And maybe I can pick up a couple chicken soup for the people who are easily scammed with the oil change books while I'm at the bookstore. Yeah, so my car had previous issues with overheating, but for the last little bit, we've been totally fine. The other day I noticed that the fan, like I was parking, and I'm really just explaining this on the podcast so that when I have to eventually explain this to a mechanic, I can just say, hey, it's in the podcast, listen to my podcast. And that in turn will get me, you know, one less time explaining the story, but also one extra listener. So it'll take it from 0 listeners to 1 listener, which, if my math is correct, is a 100% increase. So, the more you know. Wait till I start explaining my dental work on here. But getting back to the story, I noticed the other day that my car was, like, really funky with the thermostat. It was, like, going up and then coming back down. Going up, coming back down. And as I was about to finish saying a couple sentences ago, I had noticed that the fan was coming on. So like I would park somewhere and I would hear like brrr, like a fax machine almost. And that I knew was the fan because comfortingly enough, it was the same noise that I heard the night before my car almost exploded the time before. So I was like, oh, that like can't be a good thing. But I mean, so far I had gotten everywhere I needed to be. I didn't hear any engine seizing. So I was like, we're good. I'm not going to worry about it. Which is very much how I deal with things. Like I am a hypochondriac in life, but I'm like more the like avoidant type of a hypochondriac. I'm the exact same way with my car. Like I'll hear a noise and be like, oh, that is engine failure. But like as long as I get to where I need to be, I'll worry about that later type thing. Which in both my car and my being is probably not the best way to handle things, and I'm working on it. Catch me in 2024, new year, new me. But while we're still in the old year, old me, that's been my method of operation because I just, the thought of getting any sort of car fixed sounds expensive, and I just would rather not. So regardless, I've been hearing the fan go on, and then the other day I noticed that, oh, it's like really hot. Like the dial we were far out from C, literally. From cold, not like see the water, but get it? It was a joke. C, far out from C, far out on C. And we were getting really close to the H in the thermostat. And I was about to get on the freeway, and I was like, well, surf's up. Like, there's nothing I could do now. Like, I couldn't get off the freeway. Now, luckily, as I was getting on the freeway, it started coming back down. So I was, like, up at hot, and then it would go kind of down to medium where it normally lives. And I'm like, oh, phew, we're good. And then a couple minutes later, we would creep back up to hot, hit hot, so then I start sweating again, and then it would go back down to cold. So it was really playing with me, and I could hear the fan going 100 kilometers an hour on the freeway. So I was like, this is not great. But my plan, I was like, I'm gonna go slow-ish, as slow as you can go on the freeway without getting honked at. Like, I just went in the slow lane behind all of the UPS trucks and senior citizens. And I said, okay, we're all gonna go slow together. We're in this together. And we were in this together. And what was so tricky was anytime I got to an exit where I could then pull off and pull over, it was at cold. Like, it was playing with me so much that it was as hot as it could be to basically freezing. Which, funnily enough, is how the weather has been. Last episode of the podcast, I was complaining about the heat. And this episode of the podcast, I was complaining that it's I'm going to start complaining, rather, that it is too cold. So this is truly a metaphor for life. Also, the greatest similarity that I can tell you and really relate the feeling of driving my car on the freeway, passing these exits as the thermostat is going up and down. It's really the feeling of when you have to diarrhea. And I'm not even saying this to be funny. It's the closest thing I know how to relate it to. Do you know when you have to diarrhea and maybe you're in class or you're doing an exam? Maybe as a for instance, not that this happened to me, but let's say you're taking a math pre-calculus exam. And for instance, it's the start of the exam, right? The teacher handed everything out and you have a pen, your protractor, your Texas Instruments Chainsaw Massacre calculator, the T3, no, that's Tylenol 3, the TI 83 or whatever calculator, the one that does the graphing. You have that ready to go. Again, this is just completely for instance. And the exam starts, and then you feel like you have to shart, and then have diarrhea pains for the remainder of your exam, to the point where 45 minutes in, you just start circling things in the multiple choice and on the Scantron just to get out of there, to release what has been bottled up. It's like that. I mean, I've never experienced that, but I'd imagine someone has, where you realize oh shoot, oh crap, literally. And then it gets really bad and you're clenching, and then it releases and you're oh, I'm fine. And then there's moments where you feel completely normal. And then just as you pass the exit where you could get off the freeway, the diarrhea pains come back and you're oh gosh, clenching. And then there's a release. So as gross as that is, and I understand it's gross, although be lucky that I got rid of the Gupdate segment. If there are listeners who remember the Gupdate segment, which was pretty much the 10-minute segment where I would just talk about what had happened with my bowels that week. And then in the name of common courtesy, I would put in the description the timestamps and the time codes of when I started and stopped that conversation for anyone that wanted to skip it. Just be grateful I'm not doing that if this diarrhea metaphor is not for you. But it's truly the only way. As I was driving on the freeway, maybe about to explode, maybe not, talking about my car this time, that's the only thing I could think of. I was this is when you have diarrhea pains and they come and go, because it gets really, really bad and you think it's about to burst, but then you're fine. But then you're not fine for too long because it's going to go back up to H, or, and you have to clench. Anyway, you know what I'm saying. The good news was I got home fine. And then I realized that I did the math wrong and when I would need an oil change next. And I was overdue. So I rolled up to the oil change place, and ever since this experience of basically paying for my car to implode on itself at the oil change place last year, I've really had my guard up. But luckily, we got in and out of there with a good price, a good amount of work that had been done. I got some new coolant. So precisely yesterday, I was driving around town thinking, oh my gosh, I am saved. My thermostat is perfect. We're holding steady at a proper temperature. The shaking of the engine that was occurring, for weeks, which I don't think I mentioned, is basically gone. Things are coming up roses. Now, what I had forgotten was that sporadically, like maybe every couple weeks, when I would go to turn the key of my car, it would not start, which is a problem, like for sure. Like if a car is not going to start, like what is the point of having it truly? Like it arguably doesn't matter like how great your tires are, or how much gas you have in your tank, or how much coolant you had to put in your radiator after you went to the oil change place and found out that you had 0 ounces of either coolant or antifreeze or whatever the heck in either of the slots in which they go. Again, I'm still learning on Car Talk. I have to buy the 4 dummies. But yeah, all of that doesn't mean anything if when you turn the key, nothing happens. But while that had been happening sporadically over the last couple months, second time was always the charm. If the first time didn't work, if at first you don't succeed, try and try and try to turn your car on again. And that's what I always did, and it always worked. So I really wasn't like worried about that, even though you could argue that that is like really the worst problem you could have. So yesterday, I go into my car, again, after a long day's work. I think I started telling the story 15 minutes ago. I get in the car, I turn the key, and it doesn't work. And me, being me, you know, I'm pretty chill. I don't really freak out about stuff. I was like, oh, no big. I'm just going to do it again, and it's going to work. And it didn't work. And I could just feel that something was different this time. Like, I could just feel it in my gut. That was on C as opposed to H, if you know what I mean. Like, everything was relaxed down there, so I knew it was like an instinct. You know, I was channeling something. So I tried again. And I think, well, the third time must be the charm. Nope. Okay, how about fourth? It was not the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th times the charm. So then I'm like, oh, so this is like actually happening. Like I have a car that will not start. And I wasn't really panicked. Like I was just like, well, that's unfortunate. Like I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. Like I'm in like a parking lot that is not my driveway. Like, do I have to get a tow truck? Do I just like walk home? Which would take like 8 hours. I did Google it. And I was like, well, you know what? While I wait to be rescued from this scenario, like, let's just podcast. I knew I was going to have a busy morning this morning, and I probably wasn't going to get to do it till later. So I was like, perfect. Let me just podcast. I go and, you know, get luckily I brought my podcasting equipment with me. My phone. So I go to record, and I think, you know what? Let's just, like, one more time make sure that, like, I'm not gaslighting myself into thinking that the car doesn't work. Like, maybe I'm just not turning it all the way. And I try and it works. Now the problem was a problem. It wasn't that I was not turning the key the right way, but the new problem that was then created was that I was supposed to podcast. So if you're wondering why, which I'm sure everyone is, why I'm recording this so last minute, it is because my car decided to start. And had my car not decided to start, I probably would have done this over 24 hours ago, and I would probably be sleeping right now. So, thanks a lot, car. Also, yes, this is the same car that I was talking about from a couple episodes ago that I spilt Diet Coke in 4 months ago. I'm like literally like not a good car owner. Like I should be fined for like car like neglect. And do you know what my worst offensive car neglect is? I have not named my car. I've had my car for almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years next month. And I haven't named it because it just doesn't feel like there's a name to be had, you know? And I feel bad saying that. But facts are facts. And I hope one day it comes to me and I'm like, this name. Unfortunately, I think we might be on our last legs with no name. So I hope it comes quick, you know. We might be running out of time. But yeah, that was my car story. So what I can tell you is I don't know why it didn't start. I think I know why it was overheating. That problem has gone away. But it's like I solved one problem just to start another. Like so me. And I consider myself a very lucky person. I'm very glass half full, or like at least glass 50%, both of the, like I really love to look at both sides of things. Like I love to look at the negative, but I also love to look at the positive. I'm pessimistically optimistic. I don't really know what that means, but it feels like a cool thing to say. So yeah, if anyone has any tips, if anyone's like uncle or anything is like a mechanic and they're looking for like pro bono work, like maybe they want to do like, I don't know, can you like write off your taxes if you help someone fix their bubbling car? I don't really know how the government works. But yeah, I would be more than willing to be a pawn in that endeavor. If they want to provide some taxable, billable work hours, and just do like just open the hood and like just take a peek, like see like if you can notice anything. Like you don't have to like dig deep, just maybe like open the thing and like, because that's the other thing my car doesn't do. When you open the hood, you need to bring BYOS, bring your own stick to hold it up, because it just doesn't hold up the same anymore. But I love my car. It has gotten me through so many drive-thrus that I have no choice but to honor what it's done for me, as opposed to dismiss it for what it couldn't do. And really, like, I have the same problem that my car does. Like, once I get started, perfect. It's brilliant. We're good to go. But getting started, it just might take me 10 minutes. Like, it was really taking a snooze. I think it was in solidarity with the writers who are currently on strike, which this has been going on a little long now. I know we don't normally talk about current events, but I mean, again, if I have to re-extend my invitation for any TV channels, movie theaters who are looking to fill up the gaps in content that the writer's strike will eventually fill, like, you're more than welcome to play Nobody Asked for This podcast in your movie theater or over the radio, or I guess radio is music, but you know what I mean. Like, go for it. I would like preferably you pay me for it, but I'm open to negotiations. See link in bio. But yeah, I mean, I guess enough mechanical talk. I apologize I didn't have like maybe all the vocabulary and had to resort to, using bodily functions as metaphors for, vehicular scenarios. But, if that's what you get at the Nobody Asked for This podcast, you can accuse me of a lot of things. What you could not accuse me of is false advertisement. First of all, right out the gate, nobody asked for this. That is correct. And I honestly, like, as much as I have fulfilled my end of the bargain in, posting every week decently sized episodes, consistently sized episodes, as much as I've held up that end of the bargain, the public at large, the globe, really has held up their end of the bargain by continuing to not ask for this. If one day a bunch of people start listening, it's almost like I'm a lie, nobody asked for this. If it has 1 million listeners, it's like, well, no, I guess someone asked for this. So I really appreciate the country, the nation, the, international, everybody, anyone who's a part of the now, I think 8 billion people that are on the world. Like, I really appreciate you not making a liar out of me, not making a fool out of me by caring. I think it would be detrimental to my brand, to my content, if people started listening. So I encourage you all to just like continue doing what you're doing by ignoring me. And I mean that. I also just want to say, if anyone does listen to this, like maybe there's a lot of like I think of it like this, right? Like, a lot of people are like hacking into stuff like the dark web. Like, I don't know how to get to the dark web. I don't know if it's a physical location. I don't know if it's, like, I don't know if it's dark as in, like, dark, like, hidden, or dark as in, like dark material. I don't want to know. I'm not asking. I'm not summoning the dark web. But, like, how would I know if I'm viral on the dark web if I've never been there? So that's all I'm going to say. Like, maybe my numbers are inaccurate, you know? What if I'm huge in a company, or excuse me, huge in a country that Apple doesn't, like, record stats for? Like, what if I hop off the plane at wherever, insert country name here, with a dream in my cardigan, and I find out that I am the darling of, like, Czechoslovakia, you know? It could happen. Stranger things have happened. More normal things have also happened, maybe more frequently, but it's like, you never know. So I'm going to keep at this. We've been doing it a year, 50. Okay, I'm a little bit confused because I think this is the 53rd episode, but I'm pretty sure there's either 52 or 54 weeks in a year. All I know is that by date, technically Friday is the year mark of the Nobody Asked for This podcast. So if it doesn't feel like a celebration yet, it's because it hasn't technically happened. So next week will be our big extravaganza episode, I'm hoping. Or it'll be another me sitting on this beanbag chair talking about nothing because I didn't plan anything just quite yet. But yeah, I really like having this to just, talk and get out my thoughts. Not all thoughts are meant to be shared. And again, as I've mentioned several times, no one listens to this. So, like, this is my way of getting out those thoughts, in a way that no one will hear them, but it feels like I got them out. I highly recommend this. It's, like, not sad to me. It feels nice to chat to nobody, because, but again, no one asked for this, so it comes full circle. And yeah, so that's it for year one. To many more, or at least, like, maybe one more, maybe 2, 3, 4. I don't know. I'm gonna see where the wind takes me, but thank you if you listened at all. My computer's always glitching, so there is a possibility that, like, every time I log into the podcast statistics website, like, my Wi-Fi cuts out and it doesn't load, like, the massive numbers that I'm actually doing. So I'm gonna hold out hope for that. I hope you're holding out hope for whatever's important to you. I will meet you back here next Thursday for the Nobody Asked for This podcast. I hope you have a great weekend. Or if you're, happen to be listening to this on a Monday, only 5 more days to go. And we'll see you next time. Peace out.